I am so thankful for you. We've got a lot of friends and family here. We have some first-time guests here as well. I will say this, if you are a first-time guest and you would like to connect with Compassion Church, there's a couple different ways. First of all, there's a connection card in the seat in front of you. If you just put some basic information on there, maybe a contact number or an email or whatever, you can drop that in the offering box on your way out. Just let that be your contribution for today. An easier way to connect, for me at least, there's a QR code also in the seat in front of you. Just click on that QR code. It'll take you to a digital connect card, and you can just put some information on there as well, and I will get notified of that. And it just lets us know who you are so we can get to know you a little bit better and just reach out because we love having first-time guests here. And we certainly hope it's not your last time here. Well, I don't know about after what you saw this morning. You might decide, this is not the place for me. But hey, we are who we are and what we are, and we just love Jesus, and we hope that you love him with us. So real quick, I've told different ones that this morning is going to be kind of a condensed service just because we have all the kids in here this morning, and sometimes it can be a little difficult keeping them all corralled. And so I'm trying to have mercy on our parents of the little ones, which we have several. So I will not take up a lot of time. But I want to start off this morning, since we have the kids here, all of them, and they're kind of spread out now, but since we have the kids here, I want to ask you guys all a question. So if the little kids are kind of distracted, turn their attention this way just for a little bit, because I want to talk to them specifically right off the bat. You guys, have you ever had a grown-up maybe tell you that you needed to be nice to someone even though they hadn't been very nice to you? You guys ever have that? Can I see your hands? Maybe someone should. Yeah, see, we got several of them have raised their hands. Maybe you were told to share a toy with them. Maybe even a snack. You had your favorite snack at lunchtime and you were supposed to share that with them. Man, you didn't really want to do that because the whole time you were sharing with them, all you could think about was how they weren't very nice to you. But can I let you all in on a little secret? Do you know what the grown-ups were trying to teach you by doing that? They were trying to show you a lesson in grace. Forgiveness in action. That's what grace really is. Now, grace is being nice to someone even though they haven't been very nice to you. Now, it's really hard to be nice to somebody when they haven't been nice to you because what are you thinking in your mind? You're thinking, they don't deserve this. Why should I be nice to them when they haven't been nice to me? And while it may not seem like it's very fun to be nice to someone when they don't deserve it, we all like it when someone is nice to us, even though we may not deserve it. Isn't that right? Sometimes we know we've done something, but they're nice to us. Well, listen, that is grace. That is forgiveness. And this is what we want to talk about this morning because we are closing out our Christmas series that I have called God's Christmas Shopping Guide. And this whole series has just been a list that as I thought about what God would want us to give to others for Christmas, here's how he might guide us in our Christmas giving. And so far in this series, we have talked about giving the gift of our inconvenience. And we looked at Luke 10 and the Good Samaritan and how he saw the Jewish man laying along the side of the road and he was all beat up and bruised and he went and he took his supplies and he helped him and he gave his money and he helped him and he gave his time and all this and he just really, it was a gift of inconvenience. It was completely out of his way. And then we talked about the gift that cost too much, giving the gift that cost too much. And we looked there in Mark 12 how the widow, she gave 2 pennies. And it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but if that's all you got, that's a lot. But she gave it anyhow, even though it was a gift that cost too much. And then last week, we talked about the gift of our time, giving our time. And Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 talked about if a soldier tells you, hey, you're going to carry my gear for 1 mile. He says, carry it the extra mile. And then he demonstrated that for us. We talked about how Jesus had a very difficult day, remember? And on that difficult day, people were still wanting and asking and needing things from him. And he gave them the gift of his time. Now, when you stop and think about all of these gifts from God's Christmas shopping guide, they are all really Gifts of grace. Stop and think about this just for a little bit. Do you really believe that that Jew that the Samaritan found lying along the side of the road deserved his gift of inconvenience? Especially when I told you how the Jews treated the Samaritans. They treated them horrible. Now the Jews, here's a little side note, the Jews were commanded by God to pray for everybody and everything. So do you know how the Jews would pray for the Samaritans? They would pray that they would be annihilated. They prayed that they would be wiped off the face of the earth. Listen, if someone's going to pray for me like that, please don't pray for me, okay? I appreciate it, but don't pray for me. But that's how they would react to them. So do you think he really deserved that gift of inconvenience? What about the widow who gave those 2 pennies? She gave all that she had to the temple treasury. If you remember when in that sermon I told you the ones who were over and in charge, the officials over the temple treasury, they were the ones who were abusing and taking advantage of the widows. But she didn't give the treasure to them, her treasure to them. She gave her gift to God. And here's a little side note about that along that line. Listen, we aren't responsible for what others do with the gifts that we give to them. We're only responsible for what, and if I could, I'd interject it there, what and how we give. And then along that same line of thought, we can't forget about carrying a soldier's gear that extra mile. Stop and think about this logically. Do you really believe that those soldiers, those cruel, mocking soldiers, really deserve that gift of carrying their gear an extra mile? Or here's another thing. Do you think they even appreciated that gift? I doubt it very highly. But that's the cool thing about gifts from God's shopping guide. No one deserves these gifts. For those of you who have been around here for a while, we've talked about helping the Shelby family out, and we're planning on doing that in a special offering next Sunday, and I'll say more about that at the end of the service. But this past week, Kyle and I were over, and we were helping them clear out the house, get the old house cleaned out, and put a lot of stuff in storage. And while we were there cleaning out the house, Sarah, the mother, they're here, by the way, she burst into tears. She began crying, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is all good. I'm a guy, I'm sorry, I don't understand women's emotions and crying and all this stuff. And I said, wait a minute, Sarah, time out. I said, why are you crying? She said, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve any of this. And I said, that's the great thing about grace. That's the cool thing about grace. I said, none of us deserve it. I said, if you really step back and look at it, who can say, well, I deserve everything God has given me, all the blessings? No, none of us deserve the blessings that God has given us. Nor, we're not able to give him sufficient gratitude and show him sufficient thankfulness for the gifts that he's given us, these gifts of grace. Yet God has given them all to us at some point in our lives. Sometimes it's continually when we step back and really think about it. And all he wants for us is to do the same thing for others. And so that's what we're going to talk about this morning in the sermon that I've titled, Give the Gift to the Undeserving. Now, let's just kind of slow things down a little bit here and reflect and think. But whenever someone in our lives, we have this person in our lives that whenever the topic is mentioned, giving a gift to someone who is undeserving, you might cringe. You might even wince a little bit because you're just like, oh man, somebody's face popped into your mind. Somebody who's undeserving, somebody who would be at the very bottom, they would be below the bottom of your Christmas giving list, and that face has popped in your mind of somebody undeserving. You're just like, ugh, here we go. And you might even kick back at me at the idea that I would even suggest that you give this person anything, let alone a gift. Because when you think about them, all you can think about is the heartache they've caused you, the pain, the stress, the hurt. Maybe it's somebody that no matter how good you've been to them and the goodness that you've tried to show them, they have returned that with nothing but heartache, selfishness, and harshness. And to be quite honest, if we're all being transparent and real, you want to give them something, but you certainly wouldn't call it a gift. Now, before you shut me down and you just dismiss me and you say, forget it, I am checking out, I don't want anything to do with this, I don't even want to hear this, you need to hear me completely. There is something amazing that happens when you give a gift to someone who is obviously undeserving of kindness. You see, when you give a gift to the undeserving, your gifts look more like God's love than any other gift you'll give. We can give gifts to our friends, we can give gifts to our family, we can give gifts to those special people in our lives, and we just feel so good, and we're so happy to watch them receive them. But listen, we're going to look at Luke 6 here in a little bit, and Luke records, he said, listen, Jesus said, even the world, even sinners do that. They love people who love them. They love people who are like them. He said, where's the blessing in that? But when you give a gift to somebody that you have already deemed in your mind they are undeserving, they do not deserve my kindness, they do not deserve my goodness, they do not deserve my love, they do not deserve my grace, but you give it anyways, you are demonstrating God's love more than any other gift that you'll give. Listen, being Christmas, this is a very real and relevant account in our mind, but God knew. Listen, God knew before he ever sent Jesus to the world that he would be rejected and despised. He knew before he was ever born that innkeeper would say, I have no room for you in the inn. There would be no place for him here. God knew that his son would be despised, that he would be rejected, that he would be ridiculed, that he would be abused, that he would be falsely accused, and even that he would be brutally killed on the cross. He knew all of that before it ever happened. But he sent him anyways. He sent him understanding all of that would take place. Listen, that is the gift to the undeserving. And it may be the most difficult gift there is to give. But God knew something that we don't know. He knows that giving the best gift to the least deserving is grace in its purest form. That's what the message of Luke chapter 2 is all about. And I don't get this why people are upset about seeing nativity. Maybe you'll drive downtown, and I know in Ashton they've got a couple of them set up in public places, and some people get so offended at seeing a nativity thinking that people are forcing God upon them. That's not what the nativity is displaying at all. The message that the nativity displays, all of the shepherds and the angels and Joseph and Mary gathered around little baby Jesus. Graham, can you want to come up here and lay for me, buddy? Where you? The message that is displaying is this right here. It is the best gift given to the least deserving. The best gift, Jesus, given to the least deserving, you and me and everyone else in this world. That's the message of Christmas. Now, I made a reference a little bit ago to Luke chapter 6. Because 30-some years after the scene in Luke chapter 2, that is the nativity, Jesus began teaching a crowd how this looks in our everyday life. Look at it here on the screen and what he says in the beginning of this lesson. He says, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. And pray for those who hurt you. Now, when Jesus began teaching here in Luke chapter 6, he began sharing this list of wrongs that people would do to us, do to others, us specifically. And while he's listing all these wrongs that would be done to us, he's telling us how we need to respond. And I don't know about you, but naturally speaking, in my life, in who I am and what I am, this is not a normal reaction. This is not how I would choose to respond all on my own. And if you ever decide you want to go read this, this is just the beginning of what Jesus says. But he says a lot right here. Look at it again on the screen here real close. It says, Jesus tells us, listen, if we want to give gifts like God gives, that we must love our enemies. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time I looked at the word enemy, that wasn't somebody who I enjoyed spending my time with. Generally, it's very friction. There's a lot of stress. It's an awkward experience. That relationship between the Jew and the Samaritans, they would be considered enemies. But what does Jesus tell us to do? Exactly what the Samaritan did. Love your enemy. And then he says, do good to those who hate you. Now, I don't know about you, but when somebody hates me, that's the hardest person to do good to. But this is what Jesus tells us. And then he says, bless those who curse you. While somebody is cursing you, have you ever been horn cussed? You know what I'm talking about? Rah! Most people don't respond, bless you. It's back at you. You're screaming at them. You're upset. Well, you're the idiot. What are you doing? Jesus said, bless them. Not sarcastically either, mother. Love you. Not sarcastically, sincerely. Bless them. And then this is the hardest one. He says, pray. That is, pray with love, pray with goodness, and pray a blessing for those who hurt us. I don't know about you, but this flies in the face of every natural response to these actions against us. Now, you might read this and you say, okay, Pastor, we got to pump the brakes here for a minute. Let's just back off this because you don't know what they did to me. You don't know how they treated me. You don't know how long it went on. You don't know how severe it is. You know nothing about this, and you have no room to say anything about how I should react because you don't know. You're right. I don't. But God does. And God doesn't know just in the sense that He's God and He knows everything, because He is and He does. But God knows because He saw all this done to His Son. And listen, I can endure a lot. I can have a lot. I mean, I've had a lot of people say a lot of bad stuff about me, which, it's not true. Maybe some of it's true. I don't know. And I can handle that. But you start talking about my kids, you start messing with my kids, or now even my grandson, who I like the best, by the way. You start talking about them or messing with them, and you're going to get the horns. It's a problem. So God knew. He knew about all this. He knew this reaction. He knew what these hurts would be. Yet He still gave the gift of His grace. He still gave us Jesus. And while Jesus goes on in this section of verses, and He says a whole lot more, probably more than most of us are ready to receive right now, He finishes up this lesson by saying that when we mirror this kind of gift giving, when we mirror this kind of grace, when we reflect this kind of love, then and only then will you truly be acting as children of the Most High. And that word acting isn't like pretending. It means behaving. For He is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. And here comes our part. You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. Told Sarah back when we first met her and first started helping her, I said, compassion just isn't the name of our church. It's who we are. And it's how we want to love others. Can I just tell you all something about giving a gift to the undeserving? When we give like this, when we give with this heart, we are demonstrating God's compassion that He's already shown to each of us. But when we do this, here's the cool thing. If you kind of tune me out a little bit, tune back in real quick. When we do this, God has a special gift for us that we've never expected. You see, when we choose to forgive someone who has done us wrong, the person who really receives the gift is us. We're the one who receives the gift. Listen, if you're carrying hard feelings towards someone because of something they've done to you, can I tell you something? Most of the time, they are either A, unaware of what they've done, or B, they don't care what they've done. But either way, they are not carrying the weight of their actions, their wrongs towards you. You are. You are the one who is carrying the weight of that wrong that you've experienced at their hand. So when you choose to forgive that person, you extend grace to them. Notice I didn't say forget it, because sometimes that's impossible. But we choose to forgive them. That means that we no longer hold them accountable. We no longer associate their name with the guilt of the wrongs against us. We no longer think of their name and their wrong that they did to us synonymous as one another and toward us, and an offense and harsh toward us. And that is how we look at them and how we react to them. When we free them from that guilt, forgive them, we are really freeing ourselves from the prison their actions held us in. The one being set free is you. That's the cool thing about giving the gift to the undeserving. This is God's gift to us when we choose to give like He gave. Now, very practically speaking this morning, it's not necessary, nor is it sometimes even safe or wise for you to inform the person you are forgiving. You can understand certain scenarios where it's just not always wise to go to them and say, hey, I'm forgiving you. It's not always a good idea. And I know this may be a lot more than what you bargained for this morning, especially the way we kind of kick things off here with the kids. But trust me, giving a gift to the undeserving is exactly what God did when He sent Jesus to earth that night so long ago in Bethlehem. And if we're going to give like Him and be compassionate, we need to give the same way. So as we wrap up God's Christmas shopping guide, let me ask you this. Can you think of someone who's not on your Christmas list this year because of bad feelings, hard feelings, resentment? Maybe it's somebody who's hurt you very recently this year. Maybe it's somebody way deep in your past that maybe you've not even thought of till just now. Why not give them a gift like God gave you? Give them the gift of grace. Give them the gift of your forgiveness. Now, maybe you're somebody who doesn't really have someone in your life that has hurt you so deep and that severely. First of all, can I say this? You need to thank God. You need to thank God right now for that blessing that you don't have somebody who has hurt you so deep. But maybe there's just someone who's kind of annoying in your life. Anybody have somebody annoying in your life? Can I see your hand here? All right, those of you who didn't raise your hand, you're probably the annoying person in someone else's life. You know, they've never done anything really wrong to you, super, bad, but they're just not your favorite person to be around. Maybe it's a relative. Could be a coworker who just has the gift of rubbing you the wrong way. They say all the wrong things at all the right times. Can I offer you just a little suggestion here as we kind of bring this in for a landing? Why not go out of your way to show them some kindness? Give them the gift of your grace. You know, as we look for ideas from God's Christmas shopping guide, instead of being bitter toward them and hard toward them, maybe, that family member that ignores your calls, never responds to a text, and you're just trying to show them goodness. You want to really know how to really reach them? Send them a meal. Have it delivered at their house. Just say, hey, just want to wish you a Merry Christmas. You don't have to say anything else. Wish you a Merry Christmas right now. How about instead of blocking that person on your social media, because we like to really, we're going to really show somebody, I will block you. And then we tell everybody, I blocked so. Instead of blocking them, How about praying for them whenever you see one of their posts? It might be hurtful. It might be harsh. It might be 100% wrong. Instead of engaging in them and getting sucked into their world of drama and hurtfulness and harshness, just pray for them. You'll say, "But nobody will know what I did." Exactly. But you will. God will. God will see your heart. Show them the gift of love. Give them the gift of grace. I know giving someone we feel who is undeserving a gift is something we don't like to think about. But when we remember that God gave his Son to us, who were all very undeserving of such love, it helps us remember what this time of year is all about. Because giving a gift to the undeserving is the greatest display of God's grace we can show. And best of all, when we give like this, we're the ones who receive the real gift. Let's pray this morning.